Vegeta, what does the scouter say about Dredd's subscriber level?
It's over 160!
Wait a minute, what? Are you guys serious? But that's impossible! Hey, what's going on everyone? It's Jredd, and boy am I happy. I didn't expect this type of increase at all. Not only have I had more subscribers come in, but more comments, more views, more everything. So, what better way to show my thanks than to have a little bit of a Q&A about me, about Dragon Ball Shift, and about maybe asking you guys for some feedback at the end of this thing. So, let's get on with it, shall we? So first, a little bit about me and what I was doing before I decided to give Dragon Ball content a try. Well, actually, I'm a chip musician. I make chip tunes, and in fact, all the music that you hear in the background of my videos, or all the music that I use, is either created by myself or by a combination of myself with some of my musician friends. So that's a little bit of trivia for you. As far as what made me want to give Dragon Ball fanfiction or whatifery a try, whatever you want to call this, well, it really has to do with all of you out there on YouTube. You're all making incredible content, and it's kind of hard not to be inspired, right? Plus, like many of you, I was one of those kids that used to run home from school every day and watch Toonami, right? So I suppose if I look at it logically, it was really only a matter of time before I tried something like this myself. I mean, I had no idea of the success or attention or complete utter failure, but sometimes you just gotta try stuff anyhow, see what happens. And so far, I'm pretty pleasantly surprised by the response. I think that's enough about me for now, so let's get to your questions. One of the first questions I got is, what exactly is Blutz mode? And well, that's an excellent question. I'll try to explain it the best I can. In earlier parts of the story, it was stated that Bulma had created a Blutz wave machine to help the Saiyans grow their tails back. In doing so, she kept increasing the Blutz wave output little by little, very gradually, so that they didn't get a full-on dose, but just enough to grow the tails back without transforming. But this started something of a mutation in their DNA, so that after enough exposure of that, even low doses over a year's training, basically resulted in them being able to create Blutz waves within their body, basically using it as an energy source within themselves instead of creating an artificial moon. But since the Blutz wave dosage wasn't all that high, it's going to take them a while to fully master it and use the full power of it. But it is a multiplier not unlike Kaioken, except whereas Kaioken would put strain on the body, Blutz mode puts strain on the mind of a Saiyan. Of course, then the next inevitable question is, well, could the Saiyans see the humans do Kaioken and then stack that on top of their Blutz mode? I'm gonna say right now, no, just because the risk factor would be way too high. They haven't even mastered Blutz mode yet, and to use Kaioken on top of Blutz mode, you'd be basically putting strain on your mind and your body at the same time, and it would completely ruin you. So right now, absolutely not. In the future, I'm going to give it a very, very slight maybe, but I'm still gonna say probably not. So another question I'd gotten in the comments was, what's everybody's power level? Well, let's start off with the easiest ones first. Ones I already mentioned in the last part were Goku and Raditz, where Raditz has a base power of 7,500 and Goku has a base power of 9,000. But even though Goku has a higher base because of being a bit more used to training in general, Raditz has more self-control in Blitz mode because he's had more experience in battle using the Ozaru transformation. What about Piccolo? Well, let's take a look at the opponent he was fighting first. 6 Cybermen combined into one giant Cyberman. We know that Nappa had 6 Cybermen, and each of them were about as strong as Raditz when he first came to Earth, so 1200. 1200 times 6 gives you a power level of 7200, so that means that the Cyberman, the giant Cyberman, has a power level of 7200, and Piccolo would have to be at least that strong to stand a chance. So let's say that he is, but the stipulation is that he's much faster. See, once he takes off his weighted clothing, he's got a speed advantage, and the Cybermen are just not used to being that huge and clunky. So even with all that power, they really couldn't hit Piccolo, and all Piccolo had to do was wait it out and charge a special beam cannon, and since he was equal in power to the Cyberman he was fighting, he really didn't have to charge it that long in order to take him out. So I hope that clears that up. What about Gohan and Chi-Chi? Well, when they're just fighting normally, I'd say that Chi-Chi is around the 2000 range, and Gohan be about around the 3000 to 3500 range. But you have to remember that they both have the possibility of easily getting provoked and enraged, and that would increase their power dramatically. So even though that seems a bit weak, that's not the end of their power for them. So just keep that in mind, but I don't want to say how high that can spike because that would spoil the next part, so you're just gonna have to wait on that. Lastly, let's look at the 4 characters that trained on King Kai's planet. But I don't want to spoil too much, so not only am I just going to give you base power levels, but I'm not even going to tell you if they're suppressed or not. Coming in at easily the weakest physically, we've got Chaozu at about 2000 to 2500 range. Now that may sound weak, but think about how in this story Chaozu has been really developing his psychic powers to some otherworldly level. Also, in this story, I'll say that not only does Chaozu have quite the handle on psychic powers, but that also extends to other mystical things as well. And I'll just leave it at that, and you can draw your own conclusions. Next up, here comes Yamcha with a very respectable 6500. Now, we don't know if that's suppressed or not, and also, I'd like to point out that Yamcha is easily the fastest of the group, and also the most unpredictable. So, you'll find out what that means as the fight continues in the next part. Now, as for Krillin, I'm going to give him about 6750 as far as his power. But again, we don't know if that's suppressed or not, do we? Also, as far as the way that he handles Kaioken, I'm going to say it's the closest to Goku out of the whole group, because they're both Turtle School students and they both trained together for the longest. So, as far as being the most traditional with it, I would say Krillin is pretty much what you would expect. However, he's a little bit less apt to take risks beyond what King Kai had said, because he's got more respect for masters than Goku might. But also, don't forget he's got Master Roshi's bulk form, which also gives him a small increase. So, perhaps if he can combine those two things together, wink wink. But we'll just have to see in the next part if he can actually pull that off or not. Now, lastly, as for Tien, I think it's only fitting and fair that we give Tien the strongest physical power level out of the Earthlings that went to King Kai's planet. So, he stands at a very imposing 7000. Now, not only is he the strongest physically, but as far as the Kaioken technique is concerned, he can easily take it the highest. Why? Well, he's basically been training his body to take risks most of his life. I mean, you think about what the Tri-Beam can do and what it does to the body and how hard he's able to push that through the series. It only makes sense that this would be the perfect technique for Tien to be able to master, maybe faster than the others. But on the flip side, he may not be as spiritually in tune with more mystical techniques such as the Spirit Bomb. Now, why is that? He's a good guy, right? Well, yes, of course. But see, he still has some guilt and doubts over his past as an assassin, even though it's been years. And until he gets over that, he's probably going to struggle with grasping techniques that require you to be pure of heart. Even though Tien may be at this point, if he doesn't believe himself to be, then that could hinder him. So, I hope that's cleared up things. Oh, and as for Nappa and Vegeta, well, Nappa's max power is very unstable, 7,500, which he can't really hold on to for long because he doesn't train. At least not enough to maintain his power. Vegeta, on the other hand, pretty standard, 18,000, and he can hold on to it because he trains at least enough to do that. Alright, so I think that answers all of your questions. Now I have some questions for you guys. First off, how would you like me to handle future parts of Dragon Ball Shift? The easiest way for me to do it is just to narrate the whole script and throw some music on in the background and call it a day. I can whip that up much faster. However, if you want me to put more effort into it, say, maybe throw some sound effects in there and get some of my voice acting buddies back here to do at least some important lines that require more emotional impact, then that would be your mid-range as far as how much time it takes. Now, if you want me to go all out and get as much voice acting in as possible, as much sound effects and as much background art that's custom, well, that's going to take a little bit more time, but I'm going to leave it up to you. You tell me what you want, and I'll make it happen. Now, here's my second question for you. If you choose an option that makes it so that it'll take a bit longer for me to make the next part of Dragon Ball Shift, how'd you like me to put smaller videos in between that? Namely, maybe some videos that have to do with how I make my background music, for example, or maybe some Dragon Ball fan fiction or something that I've been reading that I find is rather interesting that maybe you didn't know about and maybe you should check out. Or maybe just some concepts I have for Dragon Ball that aren't full stories, but maybe it could get you started on your own what ifs. What do you think? Let me know what you think about these ideas, and if any of them sound interesting to you, or if all of them do, maybe I'll implement them in the future. Alright, well, I think that about wraps things up here. But again, if you have any further questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments section below. And until next time, guys, thanks so much. I really appreciate the support, and I hope you guys enjoyed this slightly different type of video. If you want more like it, just let me know, and until next time, guys, take care.